Hello, Decode back here again. This is episode 3 of my Myriad Circle discussions and podcasts that I use for wisdom on mobile, and I've been streaming them on Twitch. I really appreciate the fact that you're coming. This was kind of a shorter discussion that I had. I didn't really have the luxury of having any guests show up this time. Probably was just too short of a talk. But I was covering topics that dealt with synchronicities, things that show up as patterns that you're on the right track, and how to recognize relief as well as dealing with emotions and showing patience. So it goes down these particular roads, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. There we go. Yep, it's picking me up. Nice. Okay, well, I'm going to reintroduce myself at least a little bit. Well, at least for the evening and this particular conversation. Haven't been in a while. It's been a bit. I've been sort of out. I've had a lot to do with my children as of late, which is why it takes me so long sometimes, anywhere between 4 and 5 days before any kind of primary post. But here I am back again. I think that the setup has improved dramatically since the last time I spoke, in fact. Still pushing this out through Twitch and making everything work. So I'm super ecstatic about the fact that that has been doing so well. I guess the primary thing for today really is just kind of covering over what I've been going through throughout my day. And there's a lot that's been on my mind as of late. And hopefully I'm coming through clear. I've got a new microphone set up, so I'm hoping that it will pump through everybody, for everyone, without causing any kind of trouble or irritation. Just throw me a chat if it winds up being, like too loud, or if there's just too much going on and it's not easy to listen to. So, talking with my friend Mike, there was a lot that was going through my head. There's a certain level of relatability. Now, the traps that I find myself sort of impacting all the time, especially whenever I'm talking to anybody in particular, is winding the conversation around to where it's, for me specifically, because I can't control where anybody else goes with this stuff, but making sure that I don't wind up, one, saying something that I think is particularly judgmental, in that everlasting agreement that I made, which is just keeping the word impeccable, meaning what I say and how I mean it. Making sure that I don't wind up, I'm just keeping an eyeball on it, like I'm supposed to do. And with that being said, there is this, constant expression of old habits that I'm contending with all the time. And that would be, following in step with saying things or doing things that mentally are the kind of gymnastics where I would say are, make jokes that are in a certain direction, but I'm trying to adjust the inner setting of it, if that makes any sense. Trying to adjust what the inner alignment is, to steal from Abraham Hicks yet again. I don't know if there's actually a really good word for what I'm talking about exactly besides alignment. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. The main thing that I have going on for me is that being perpetually vigilant in this particular way makes it possible, for me to kind of recognize whenever I'm being sort of full of it, and monitoring that probably the most, especially. And so it's really kind of hard whenever I'm talking to old friends who are steeped in much of my past, and we kind of bring it forward into the present and maintaining that sense of equilibrium. Now, I've kind of found out that there's a way to do this. While I haven't mastered it yet, to make jokes or idle commentation or anything that kind of goes along the same lines, keeping the flow going, right? But making certain that what I say is not maligned in its intent. I try to make my sarcasm far more severe. Meaning that if I say something that sounds particularly awful, because I do, I'm probably the most This is probably where I am the most kind-hearted, is when I'm talking on wisdom in this particular broadcast, is whenever I'm actually probably the most polite, in the sense that I'm just trying to convey ideas in a way that reaches out and across in a uniformly both compassionate and succinct way. It's necessary for it to do that. I love all the jokes. It's the reason why I have a channel that's all about like gaming and all that other stuff. It's the reason why I get invested in these kinds of hobbies too, where I'm, playing Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm playing in any kind of role-playing setting where it allows me to kind of branch out and explore the dimensions of the various kinds of internal deceit that we all get that lovely little opportunity to experience in the real. I mean, for those of you who are in wisdom, you can't see it, but I literally have a cup that says "fuck me like the government." I mean, that's my standard. That's usually like the way that I like to go at it, but it's all amusing to me, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I actually carry any real vehemence towards a particular group or anything else. And a lot of people find so many reasons to get angry, which I don't know. I instead of finding reasons to be pissed off, I'm seeking reasons to be much different than that. I'm actually looking for the reason to be patient or smile or do something that will make somebody's day. That last one being kind of difficult because I kind of feel like I'm always off base somehow, like I'm not quite all the way tuned in. Of course, whenever I let go and forget that I'm trying to do that, it happens naturally. An example might be that my last call today, while I was at work, I was able to kind of get this woman laughing, and I wasn't trying to do that. I just was talking and being myself, and it worked out. She was kind of enjoying it, and I don't know, the conversation went in the right direction, and I wasn't trying to force it. I was just letting things be as they are, allowing them to function as they should, instead of trying to manifest it all forcibly, which again is the main parameter of this particular episode here, because I'm really aware of the fact that once I've stopped caring, once I've stopped trying to reinforce whatever condition sounds good, and I just kind of, I don't know, I drop it and be like, it's fine. I don't need to worry about any of this. And eventually I actually kind of forget that I had anything set in motion. The next thing I know, there's a whole bunch of shit happening that's in the exact right place and right time. Still been noticing when numbers are all lined up, there is the seeing multiple instances of 111 or 1111 or 222 or 333. It just keeps, these things keep popping up. They keep happening, and I never noticed any of this stuff before. And I know that there's going to be individuals out there just is like, it's just numbers, dude. You're looking at the clock at the right time. Yeah, true. But it's also kind of funny that my coffee pot clock has never been fixed, and it has a tendency to be the primary point where I see these numbers pop up, and it's not even the accurate time, so I wouldn't really bother looking at it for a reference point. I just happen to really focus in and see it at the right moment. And it's I don't know, it's profound. It stands out. And it's that deep feeling on the inside, like, hey, pay attention to this. This is exactly what you need to be listening to. And this is where, when I think about it, this is what I'm meaning whenever I'm talking about relief in particular. Something happens to me, something very specific, whenever I am trying to focus on these things without pushing them. See, here's the balance, right? Each and every one of us has that impulse. Go, 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 go. Do. We're constantly pushing out for it. There's a time and a place for this. Absolutely. There's a time and a place for anything like this. And it's important that we know when to do that, when the action part is necessary, when it's relevant. It's also really important when not to know when not to move. There's a very good reason to stay patient and not move. To only do it whenever you're in the best possible circumstance, even if everybody else thinks you're absolutely crazy. You have to follow your own intuition on this one. Nobody else is going to know it's correct, and even most of the time, depending on how practiced you are with listening to yourself, you're probably not going to get it right the first few times either. All that self-doubt really pours in and makes a problem. So, I guess I sort of will present the changes that I've encountered as a result. And, I don't know, depending on what y'all hear, you could make up your own damn minds if it's something that's, evidence to the, proof of concept, I guess. So, everything in my social media space has had a bit of an upgrade. I mean everything. That's like my Instagram. I notified all 3 people that I have following me. This is an exaggeration, but the very few people that actually pay any attention to that will notice it. But in my primary YouTube channel, where I do all of my major entertainment stuff, I got a nice new banner that I made, and it looks freaking amazing. And I've been gushing about it all day long. It's awesome. I can't believe I actually put it together myself in only a couple of hours, but it makes perfect sense. So did that, threw out that into all my social media spaces that were relevant. On the second part of that, I wound up kind of just investigating other areas of importance where it was necessary to just kind of like sort out whatever the hell it is I'm going to do with my primary RPG streams. Specifically coming up with a full-blown overlay that I can utilize. Well, turns out the system by which to make this function was not only easier than I ever expected, but readily available. It was when I didn't give 2 flying shits that I suddenly wound up having the exact thing I needed. Again. And I'm just kind of letting it roll, man. Whenever the feeling strikes me and it's like, there we go, I'll go for it. Turns out that's the right time. Had that moment several times. There's just been other subtle things that have been going on. I mean, this might not sound like much, but I've been working in this side of things for, 2-3 years now. And things have not grown. They haven't gotten bigger. They haven't gotten more impressive. This is the other one that's really kind of crazy to me. I ended up getting a sponsorship from for my Twitch and all of that other stuff, and was able to successfully at least meet the baseline goals for that sponsorship. That's going to end soon, and then while I was waiting for that one to kind of sort itself out, I got another one. This is starting to get to me to be really nuts, because I have zero control over when sponsorships come my way. This just happens. So I've got 2 relatively good sponsorships to start with. The second one being for Raid Shadow Legends in particular, which is hilarious. Both mobile games are the 2 sponsorships I got. But Raid Shadow Legends definitely pays well from the looks of things. And I'm like, wow, I could really do some damage with this. If I can meet goals, then I'll get that cash and it'll be worthwhile. That'll be good. It'll kind of set me right, and taxes are coming around, all that other stuff. So yeah, I've got sponsorships. I've got an overhaul for my online presence. Damn, I mean, and it's taking minimal effort. This is key. It's taking minimal effort. These things used to feel like I would have to pull my own brain out of my socket, put it into a blender, and say, fuck it, I'm not going to get anywhere. And do it anyways, when it's the most aggravating and painful and frustrating to even try to accomplish. Well, didn't have to do any of that. I just kind of waited whenever the feeling wound up kind of coming through, and I didn't half notice it either. It was just kind of this episode 3? I thought I only had 1. Somebody's in chat, just to let you guys know. Well, I thought this was episode 2. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I only saw one on YouTube, but I don't know. I'm a little bit lost. See, that's the funny thing is that this evening I've also been kind of out of it. I've been sort of dragging my ass. Things have been working out great, but at the same time, episode 2 was last week. I don't even remember doing a second episode. That's what I mean when I say I forget. I'm not present. So technically, episode 3. It's all right. So, despite delays and the rest of it, I've been having a great time. And shit, I've even been doing overtime at my current day job. A lot of it, because it's required right now. Not by my job or anything else, not by even my boss. It's actually more required by just point of life. It's a factor of my whole existence right now to get the money that I need. So it's just kind of there. And my usual responses are, God damn it, why do I have to do this again? I don't really want to, keep putting in all this extra time. It's just milking it right out of me. This child support is killing me, man. Blah, 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 blah. That track is something I've been on for a long time. It never focuses on anything else. It's just kind of a general resentment that I have to sit there and do these things. Well, I've hopped in, and I've done it. It happened the last time I did this, too. I hopped in, started doing overtime every day, pushing about 50 hours a week, and then I've got maybe 4 to 6 hours, 2 to 4 hours of this kind of stuff in the evenings, which eats up pretty much my whole day. Because that's 14 out of my 16 hours, and I've got maybe an hour lunch and breakfast sort of shoved in there with a few hygiene points, and that's pretty much it. I'm going to bed after that if I get the chance, but I'm usually getting anywhere between 5 and 6 hours of sleep a night, and I'm busy that whole time. I'm just crunching it in. My days are airtight. But instead of feeling like a pile of shit about it, I don't. It's simple as that. I don't. Something happened where I just made a choice, and it's like, I'm not going to feel shitty about it. It's going to be right. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to have a good goddamn day. That was the other thing. Finally managed to convince that friend of mine, Mike Say, to let me in on his game, and it was fucking awesome. It was the most amazing weekend I've had in a long, long time. I was gaming for 8 hours, just doing tabletop. It's been the first time I've had that much time to commit to a game since I was a teenager. It's been so long. Being an adult can kind of feel entrapping. You're stuck having to pay bills and work a day job and take care of them kids, and you got to work with your in-laws, and everybody else is scheduling over your schedule to schedule their schedule and their schedule with other people's schedules that they schedule with their schedule. So you get overwhelmed real fast, and it starts to become this sort of nonsense parade where you're just kind of second base to yourself all the time. You're never going to get home, and you're never going to go back to first. You're just kind of stuck in the middle the whole time. And how do you get out of that? Well, you kind of stop giving a crap, and the opportunities will sort of show up. I think probably the best way I've ever heard it termed, and I don't remember where this came from, but I adopted it as my own form of wisdom in this case, no irony intended, was just that if you can accept whatever your circumstances are as if it was your own choice, then you won't fight against it, you won't retaliate, you won't waste the energy. It's not something that you're going to spend a lot of your time in. So I'm very thankful that I heard that from wherever I heard it. And it's also true. I've been spending my time choosing the destiny that I'm going to have. I wake up in the morning, and I kind of do a base check. I'm just kind of like, okay, how do I feel physically? Yeah, I feel all right. Slept pretty well. How do I feel emotionally? Kind of neutral, like nothing, not bad, not good. Okay, how do I want today to go? That's generally how the question ends up being. How do I want today to go? I contemplated a little bit, and the answer is always the damn same, right? I'm not going to sit there and it's like, I'd love it to be terrible. Please bring upon me great calamity, thank you. That's not a realistic method of having a good day, at least not in my experience anyway. Excuse me. So instead, it's like, I'm going to have a good day. I leave it at that, too. I just go, I'm going to have a good day, or I'm going to have a great day. It depends on how fearless I'm feeling. See, that's, I guess, probably the part that I hadn't really realized until just now. It's a level of fearlessness that comes in where it's like, I'm going to have a great day. Well, a lot of people probably don't want to go that step, because if you declare you're going to have a great day, it feels almost as if life is going to try and pressure you into having an awful one by comparison. It's this weird kind of upside down belief that if you aim for something, that great and terrible things will just be what happens to you in order for you to get there. It's not true. Having a little bit of challenge or obstacle, yeah. If something major is going to happen, it would happen anyway. See, that's the real trick right there. That's the part that we don't actually realize ourselves. If something truly awful is going to happen, like something that happened to one of Mike's coworkers, something that's just absolutely heart-wrenching. I'm going to relate it here very briefly because I don't want to bring this down, but I think it deserves a mention because it's kind of impressive that this girl's had this kind of impact, okay? Impact in the sense that her life had meaning and it mattered to somebody, and now she's gone, and she's going to bring that meaning to someone else in the form of organs. So, long story short, my friend gets to work, his pallet jack is busted, it's not going, he's stuck for an hour, and he has a conversation with one of his coworkers in the meantime, and the man had somebody that he needed to talk to, and it turns out that my friend Mike happened to be that guy. And he relays that his granddaughter had died over the weekend, which is awful. And he was trying to process this. And the reason why she died is because she had a lethal dairy allergy. And mixed up which pizza she had, because her family had purchased two kinds, non-dairy and regular, and she had brought the wrong one to school and ate some of it, and it killed her in minutes. She didn't have a chance. There's nothing there, which to me was sort of strange, because I was thinking, wouldn't you have an EpiPen, because that sounds like anaphylaxis, and if you're going to suffer from anaphylaxis, having an EpiPen is necessary to stop you from dying when you suffer that kind of reaction. So this man's dealing with this. And it's like, and it had an impact on Mike, and it had an impact on me, and I suspect it would probably have an impact on you. But I'm not relaying that story to bring a sense of depression or, sadness into the mixture here. What I found myself doing was two things. Given the fact that, spiritually speaking, I am of the hardcore belief that we choose what we're supposed to do here and how we're supposed to clock out. And as far as I'm concerned, it was one of those moments where she wasn't meant to stick around. And I don't know that brings it any more comfort, per se, at least to the man who lost her. But it also means that this man who's suffered this loss and the family therein have all chosen that this would be the lesson that or at least be the experience that they would undergo, because they knew they would learn something that would cause them to understand it. And that's kind of the stuff that makes me go, first of all, we have to take into account, if we're going to assume or presume that the life we lead is at least in some way given the opportunity to be measured out in what the experiences we have should be. There's big events that we all get to experience one way or the other, and we have one really important choice when it comes down to that. Now, you can call this fate, you can call it destiny, whatever you want to call it, but these big nodes that we encounter that stir things up probably in the harshest way possible, they're unavoidable. Absolutely 100% unavoidable. There's no way we're going to get around it. And if you're miserable before you get there, you're going to be extra miserable when it's over. So it's really critical that we find a way to reinforce that inner self to deal with this. That means allowing the expression of grief and everything that goes with something like that kind of an event, everything that goes with it, we should be able to handle it and keep standing. That would be the ideal kind of outcome, I think. And if we can't, it means that we were underprepared. But that's what it's going to show us. It's going to demonstrate that we just didn't have the chops at the time that this, whatever this atrocity is. Whatever is happening, though, I'm certain that this man and that family and everyone who's in it is going to have some kind of benefit from suffering a loss like this. But more in particular, they were very generous with how they acted, and this girl's going to save someone else as a result. And that's a pretty fantastic kind of outcome, all things considered. And I don't know. That's incredible stuff. That's a hard story to hear. That's a hard thing to listen to, and it's even more interesting, and it really puts that spin on how do you maintain yourself in a positive, joyful way when it seems like misery and suffering really are just right around the corner waiting to ruin your day. And that's the question that I'm trying to push through, is like, how do we ready ourselves without becoming extraordinarily overwhelmed? And it's important to remember that we have control over one aspect of this, and that is staying connected to that which we are. That's literally all there is to it. Doesn't mean that we stop sadness. Doesn't mean we stop grief. Doesn't mean that we, prevent anything. And that's really the antithesis of this whole life experience. If we were set up to try and avoid everything in our life, we wouldn't have life. We would just have been on the other side of things. We wouldn't be here in the physical form at all. Why bother? There's no point in it. So if our strict focus is to prevent ourselves from having any kind of serious outcropping of understanding in any way, the issue there is going to be, we're not going to live, and we're not going to be alive. It's going to be an utter mess, and we're just going to end up dying wishing we had done more, and that is probably more sad than somebody who just allows themselves to open up. One of the major benefits to allowing this kind of thing to go through, by the way, is that if you get slammed with something that feels like it knocks you over, it very well might. It might knock you on your ass. It might take you completely out for months or even years. It may knock your ass down. But in the end, it's up to you and your inner management, so to speak, that will allow you to break through it faster. But the key thing here is that you will break through. We don't know what the outcome or the end game is. That's part of the fun of this, is we don't know what the end game is. And not knowing that makes everything in this particular series of events, for anyone and how they deal with it, it makes it very important and surprising and exhilarating, really exciting. If we get trapped by the fear of what could be in terms of catastrophe, we don't move, right? But that's can be misconstrued as patience too, now that I think about it. That's something that can be very well misconstrued as patience. The too afraid to move can appear like somebody who's just being patient, when really all they're doing is just holding still and waiting for the calamity to pass, instead of doing something more productive with themselves, as far as like their inner being is concerned. So the main thing that I always try and do all the time is just kind of maintain, as much of an open mind as I possibly can. And it's really interesting. So here's something that is different inwardly or psychologically that I end up performing quite often and is starting to stick. And that's when something happens, the question I ask is no longer, why is this happening to me? It's more of a, why did I ask for this? Like, that's where I'm at. When something kind of weird happens, or if something gets goofy or stupid, I'm just kind of like, why did I ask for that? What am I trying to What am I trying to measure up here? What exactly is the point of making this, process more aggravated? Like, why did I do that? I take utter responsibility for what I'm doing, and it helps a lot. It even actually makes me laugh. I'll find myself chuckling a lot of the time. Something will go dumb, like maybe I don't know, do something silly at work where I just put in something in the wrong ticket perhaps, and I have to correct it, or I'm working a project and I kind of have this mass confusion like I did today. I was creating that banner and I kept getting certain things all screwed up, and it was just a big pain in my ass for a good 30-40 minutes. It slowed me down, and it just, by the time it was all over, I'm chuckling to myself going like, why the hell did I do that? Why did I ask for that kind of nonsense, in order to make this work? And it seems a bit silly to me. And, I just kind of drilled down on it. It's like, well, I guess maybe part of that is that you're making sure you actually want to do this. You technically want to have this, right? And you're still doing the whole, well, you got to suffer a little bit if you're going to make some kind of progress. Is that necessary? No, but it is a rerun. It's proof that I've still got the reruns going. That I have that tape in my head going like, well, if it's not a struggle, then it ain't worth it. Anything worth doing's got to be hard. I know that's probably 90%, if maybe not 100, have heard of that. And given how easy it was to get things going in this particular way over the last week or so, I'm pretty close to just calling bullshit on that idea altogether. When something is correct, you're not struggling. There might be struggle in what you're doing. Like if you're trying to get really wiped out, for instance, there's a certain degree of struggle. But you know what you're not doing is that you're not fighting yourself to go to the gym. That's the struggle I'm talking about. There's no resistance at all. You don't go, fuck, I gotta go to the gym and do this stupid workout shit. And it's like, I personally don't have that problem because I don't go to the gym. Instead, I just go like, my body will sort it out. I'm probably not eating nearly as much as I had before, which is true. I've probably lost a little bit of weight, but am I really all that put out by the fact that I'm minorly pudgy? And it's like, no, not really. It's not that big a deal. I accept the fact that this is the choice I've made somehow or another. Being mildly pudgy is the exact form I was looking for, so here I am. I stopped asking for that. Now, am I going to be unhealthy? No. I'm still worried about, I can't say worried, that's not right. I'm still focusing on eating the right things when I can. It's not all the time. Lacking finances has a tendency to put you in a position where you can't get everything you need in exactly that same way, but it's clearing up. I've found out that I have some kind of weird protein deficiency thanks to the Guru Warrior who showed up on here a while back. And man, I'll tell you what now, man, I'm sleeping so much better. And I try to eat as vegetarian as possible, but I'm going to tell you, man, I sleep really good whenever I have a damn hamburger. And I crave those fucking things. I love hamburgers. I know I'm not supposed to, and everything spiritual out there is like, well, you're basically lowering your vibration by eating food like that. It's basically dead. And it's like, I know it's dead food. I realize that all the enzymes are cooked out of it. It's also built out of an animal that's got an emotional complexity to it that really, makes me feel kind of sad whenever I think about it, because they can understand what's going on here. And if they get traumatized and the meat spoils, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I used to know people that hunted, so, the meat spoiling is a real thing before you even eat it. If it's not killed properly or quickly. And it's, it does terrible things to the meat, makes it taste awful. And, second to that, you have to cook the damn thing to get all the freaking bacteria out. And then you eat it, and then you have to sit there and decompose, or basically eat what's there, or digest, which the meat itself is already in decomp, because bodily flesh like this decomposes pretty rapidly after death. Vegetables and raw foods don't do that. They don't decompose so fast. They actually remain alive for an extended period of time. Which is why eating raw foods is so good, because they're alive when you eat them. All the stuff you need is on the inside of those raw foods. So you should feel better, right? Yes, and I do. I do feel better when I eat raw foods, but I'm lacking in protein. And even with like red beans and some of the stuff that I was eating from beforehand, I still crave those goddamn hamburgers. And it's like, I have a freaking hamburger, good to go. I sleep like a baby. And I wake up energized. I've got stuff going on. So, I'm a bad spiritual person. Can't stick to my vegetarianism too easily. But I'm fit in a certain way. And I'm not technically a bad spiritual person. I just make fun of myself because I think it's funny. It's funny as hell that I tried so hard to kind of go in this one direction. And physically speaking, I'm just kind of like, nah, I need the beef. For whatever reason. Beef or turkey, it does something. It works. Like, my system can assimilate it pretty easily. It's like it's designed to do that. And I don't know why that's the case. But instead of arguing upside and down the other, I just accept the fact that I need to have a hamburger every so often. That's it. I feel better when I do that. My system is more operable. Other things I shouldn't probably discuss because they're just not that important and or gross. Meaning aftermath. Nobody needs to hear that. Nobody needs to be a impromptu proctologist. It's just things are better whenever I do that. So I just allow it to be that case instead of trying to get in its face and make all kinds of claims like, this is evil. Not worth it. It's not worth my time. It's not worth anybody else's time. It gets me all bent out of shape and bent, and I'm sick and tired of being bent. I've spent so much of my time bent that I forgot what the hell it looked like to be straight. Pun. The main things that I find myself trying to do is just monitor all the time, without a micromanager's type touch. That's really kind of the key. How do you observe something without wanting to put your finger in it? That's the one trick. Because our first impulse with anything is to go, it's like, I want to touch it. It's like, don't touch it. Just watch. Somehow, when you're just watching, things kind of like fall into place. First of all, because you're relaxed. You're not taking on all this extra weight. You're not adding to the circumstances or situations. You're not making it worse or making it weird. You're just soaking it in and letting it be the case that it exists. It's good stuff. I haven't had a single bad frame in my head or really at all. Yeah, not at all. And the dreams have slowed down, which is good, but they're no less vivid when they do come in. The one in particular, like the one from last night, was very, very strange. It was kind of like my ex had showed up out of nowhere and decided she was going to start wringing my neck. She was just like, I know that she's been giving you the checks. And I was like, and? Mind you, she's referring to my oldest daughter, and which this is the part that I don't quite understand, is that she's not giving me any checks. But in my dream, apparently she was, and had been doing it for a long time for money. I think she was like trying to help or something. I guess that must have been the narrative. Not terribly clear. And she's like, I know she's been giving you the checks and you're in trouble. And I'm just sort of like, no, I'm not. There's nothing going on. And she just got really huffy with me, right? Well, and my lawyer, jeez, he was going to court and he was complaining about how the court was running and stuff. I'm just sort of like, oh, damn. I got a good lawyer. I don't feel scared about none of this crap. Things are going to work out. It's going to be fine. Even if they do say that you've been doing this, that, and the other thing, I'm just going to walk in that courtroom. It's like, look, it's just, she wants to come home. Just let her come home. Right? That's it. That's my only argument. Let her come home. And that dream kind of had a lot more detail invested in it because there was a lot of going into and out of the courthouse and going back and forth between that and another home, which was really large, but was super well put together. It had its like own offices and stuff. It was crazy. It was like a office and house kind of mixed together. It was nuts. But these dreams are getting to be kind of impactful. And like I said, I'm stabilizing. So when I'm stabilizing, things start to sort themselves out and become much more intriguing. And they also become a lot more, they make more sense. Because it's not me hunting demons under the bed, going for my gun, and pulling out a handful of spaghetti. Like, that is kind of it. Or my personal favorite, running through a gymnasium, suddenly sliding up a slide, flying through the air, having the mats go all everywhere, and then sliding down a rainbow on the other end. What? What in the hell is that? That is acid trip. It's... My dreams are bonkers. If there's no crowning point to it, or like, if my consciousness is not aware or awake, my dreams are just, they're bananas. They don't make any damn sense. And I was having a lot of those over the last several weeks, where it was just like crazy bonkers bonanza all week long. I'd go to bed, have some crazy ass dream, wake the hell back up and be like, what the fuck was that? And just try to figure it out. Now, I'm trying to keep a dream journal. I actually have it next to my bed on top of it, which I've heard that, if you're going to do anything like dream work in particular, you have to keep a journal. I can't write that stuff down when I wake up in the morning. I barely function. And it's like getting up to go to the bathroom is my top most priority. And then coming back to that notebook and trying to write something down, bloody forget it. There's just something about it that just seems impossible. I tried running audio recordings at first for a while, and that was just kind of strange. I tried to make that work, and I might go back to trying to do that again, because at least it's doing something of recording it, and then I can dictate back and write it down, I suppose. But that takes time and effort, which, as I said before, my days are pretty airtight now. So it gets to be fairly complex to try and manage that as a secondary ability. So instead of trying to dingleberry myself through all of that, I'm going to wait until the feeling is right, and I will start to work it through instead of trying to force it, because right now is not the time to do that kind of stuff. I'm just going to acknowledge the fact that my dreams are going in a certain direction, leave it at that, which is probably something I've never done up until recently. I would never just let things flow and run through and do what they had to do. I always tried to stick my finger in it, like I was saying before. I always got to poke it. I see something in particular, poke. Got to see what's going on with that. Let's make it wiggle. So it's just, I don't know. I've been looking forward to coming back here on Wisdom to actually have these talks. I got a lot of questions stacked up. I'm going to go through and do those, answer all those questions out, see what I've got going on, and I'm thinking that maybe in the afternoon tomorrow I'll probably have a chance to catch some of you guys as you're doing your own talks and start processing more information as it goes along. I think I really am hyper invested here when it comes to getting everything going still. So good news. Still on top of that mountain for now, and I'm going to enjoy it because I don't know, this app in particular is groundbreaking. I think I've said that many times, and we're going to keep seeing more and more and more people flooding into it, and I can't wait to see where this goes, man. I've been staying out of the news completely on a secondary note, which is, a lot of times people like to talk about politics. They like to discuss things that are going on around the world, but holy crap, if it isn't just one negative thing after another, constantly. It's just can't get anywhere. Luckily, my YouTube feed has completely cleared out except for a few spotty things from place to place. Oh, that's another thing. Consumption. What you consume really does have an effect on you. And I've been watching about that too, because just like bad food will screw up your day in terms of your physicality, bad consumption of, negative elements in your daily, psychological life will also contribute to serious problems, which is not an unusual thing to note. Like, a lot of people understand that this is kind of writ, right? But how many of us actually stop doing it? How many of us stop doom scrolling? How many of us actually stop watching the news? And we go like, yeah. And then we go right back to CBS. Or Facebook or TikTok or whatever. And it's kind of like the blackout game that I heard about not too far recently. I received an email from my kids at school that was talking about that stupid game that people used to play when we were kids. For those of us who are of the generation around 40 or higher, whenever we were doing that stupid game where you try to make yourself pass out from like holding your breath or self asphyxiation. There's a whole TikTok trend apparently that got that going, and I'm like, oh great, let's share that with the world. That seems smart. Jesus Christ! Well, I received an email that said this is something that's been going on, and kids are going to be willing to try it, and I'm like, yeah. Never before has a stupid trend ever had such momentum. I'm certain that Tide Pods, I knew Tide Pods wasn't going to be the end of it, because there's always going to be some there's going to be some stupid thing that so many people have to try and do, and I'm going to be completely honest in that moment here. I was almost about to say some stupid people, and that's exactly what I was talking about at the start of this, which is making sure that I rearrange my words to identify what actually might be stupid in a circumstance. And is it the people? I would say that they're doing something dumb, but it's not that the person themselves is dumb. Something on the inside of them isn't working correctly. That's different. But I was able to catch that, filter it, realize okay, we're filing that one under, definite judgmental statement. And we're trying to fix that, because acceptance is that something can be stupid in that it is life-threatening or dangerous or risky or can potentially cause harm. All of that makes sense. But if we point the finger at someone and deliberately accuse them of desiring those kinds of things, I think we kind of get away from ourselves on that one. It's sort of a weird, loose, sort of a loose cannon, loose trigger. And we have to be very careful about how we say those kinds of things. And I am not a fan of censorship, to be that clear. We should say exactly what we mean, right? And even if that means that we're being offensive, in that somebody else finds what we're saying to be offensive, not that we are being deliberately awful to someone else. And, there's going to be people that just are deliberately awful to others all the time. But that's because they're working some kind of weird darkness in themselves out. They're trying to figure it out. And they don't have the tools and they don't have the keys. And for whatever reason, like it or not, when we encounter those individuals, we're the ones asking for their presence. Somehow or another, we, on some unconscious level, we're like, hey, I need to actually kind of either get more humble, or I need this obstacle here to kind of help me out. And lo and behold, you've got Dave showing up with all kinds of terrible ideas. But even if you're sitting there going I was doing so well before he showed up, what am I doing? Yeah, it's supposed to be episode 3, Grayley. You're absolutely correct. 100%. Yep. Nope, I just absolutely forgot that I even did an episode last week. Been riding that train. It's starting to sound like I'm stoned, but I don't even do weed anymore. The main thing that I'm finding myself in this situation about is the just maintaining that as a core principle. Whenever I see something that is truly harrowing, when somebody is doing something they really shouldn't be doing, in that they're causing harm or difficulty or terrible, spreading darkness around. Whenever they do that, it's up to me. It's up to my choice to whether or not I want to bring that with me or not. It's kind of like the story regarding, it's the same kind of idea as the story about Mike's coworker and the loss that he had. Is that darkness? No, that's a circumstance that just happens. It's awful because I'm certain that it was a lovely girl and they had to deal with it, but it's not darkness really. It's just something that happens. Life has a tendency to be very abrupt sometimes, and it has a tendency to do these things. Now, he could take that and make it dark. He can, who in their right mind wouldn't be justified for most people about being angry at the entire universe for having lost someone you deeply cared about. In fact, how many freaking stories are there? I mean, we even revel in somebody taking revenge. The Crow, John Wick, all 3 movies. Ransom with Mel Gibson. Daredevil, Vengeance. Punisher, Vengeance. That's just to name a few. And we really revel in these kinds of stories because we understand, probably more in that base degree, what pain and darkness, anger, hatred, we understand what those are. They're very easy to contemplate. They're not complex whatsoever. They're not a complex situation. And because of that, they're very simply easy to stand on. But they don't last long. They burn out quick. They go hot and die fast. And we know that too, which is also the reason why hedonism is such a hard thing to break, because you get on that track, it seems like it kind of solves certain things, and then afterwards it's just kind of like, well, I need more. And hatred is the same way. Once you start feeding that thing, it just wants more to eat all the time. It is absolute. That's what makes it destructive, actually, is the fact that it is all consuming. It just needs more fuel for that fire to keep going. And it can feel more or less just as painful to obliterate your, well, in this case, you can't obliterate it, and that's exactly the opposite of what you should do. It's not a matter of conflict or fighting this. It's a matter of acknowledging the fact that you're just not going to feed it anymore. It's inaction that stops it. It's internal inaction. You're not going to keep feeding it. And when you don't feed it, it becomes kind of its own entity, and it wants to live, and it becomes extremely angry, furious even, causing you to start suffering in the wake of its death. So in the middle of its death throes, it's tearing you apart. Shouldn't you be doing something? Like, why are we just letting this slide? So on, excuse, one after the other. It's this permeating need to do something about the feeling that can get us into trouble. Maybe there's not a lot of us that have a lot of practice. I know I don't. It's only been in the recent years where I've had any practice dealing with experiencing an emotion and then just not doing anything else. I don't know how anybody because the initial thought here is that you get a feeling, then you do something. Action is usually implied with anger most of the time. Anger is one of those things that just makes you move. 100% makes you move. Hold on. Oh, okay. The primary thing is that if we can ever learn how to do or experience emotion without having to immediately act upon it, I think that'll start to force the gap in place, and we start finding ourselves being more aware of everything in between at that point, because there's distance between us and what emotion is. We don't become the emotion, and we're not like overthrown or overloaded by it. We're actually given to something else. We get to kind of see between the cracks here and through them, and it's kind of like, wait a minute, what am I doing? How am I processing this? Why do I want to do any of these things? Is it even worthwhile? And it's not strictly a thinking game either. It's a feeling game. It's like, can you feel what's underneath? Or are you just so overwhelmed with whatever you're having an emotion about that you can't really process anything else? It becomes kind of critical at that point to really just kind of see if you can feel something underneath it that isn't anything other than just rage, anger, hatred, whatever it is, the negative emotion you have. I mean, it doesn't hurt to know if there's something there. Most of the time you can't feel it. You start practicing and then you're like, oh, there's something else. And that's there's a kind of a relief in knowing that you're not this, because that way you're not bent out of shape, like for real. You're not getting all twisted up by yourself. And that relief can start to feel really good. And I'll get into this too. Relief gets pretty intense, almost euphoric. There's a real feeling on the inside that resonates with all of this when you get down to it. And what relief does is tell you you're going in the right direction. The relief for me often feels like my lungs open up and the air I breathe carries with it some kind of potency. Like somehow or another I breathe in and it's like my lungs slap to the inside of my ribs and I'm able to draw more out of it. And it feels really good when that happens. And it goes right to the pit of my stomach and into my solar plexus, right there underneath the rib cage. And it expands outwards to the rest of me in this kind of like tingling euphoric sensation. And it happens whenever I've been dealing with something fairly stressful and suddenly the epiphany comes. And I'm just kind of like, wait a minute. I take a step back and I sit in the lap of myself. I think that's probably the best way I've ever put it. As I sit on the lap of myself and I just feel myself get wrapped up in whatever sort of inordinate goodness there is. And it's unlike anything else. Whatever the hell it is that's stressing me out dissipates. And I've realized that the only way that I've ever come to know that is by becoming extraordinarily sensitive. So I think it behooves everybody to try and see if they can't find that sensitivity. Okay? All right. I do have to kind of wrap it up as a bit of a short one. I'm going to try and make more of these still, as always. I'm trying to fit it into the schedule that I got because it's important to me that I come here and talk. It helps me work things through, sort things out, and I always hope that it does the same thing for you guys. So I appreciate everybody for coming, all 39 of you. If you do want to catch any of this stuff elsewhere outside of Wisdom or see anything else that I do, it's the same thing as my username here. It's just Decode in YouTube, or it's the Myriad Circle, same thing. So you can just do YouTube/@the Myriad Circle or YouTube/@Decode. And you should be able to see those things. And, I've got like a Facebook group and a few other things. I'm certain that it's there. You can search for Get Dangerous as well, because that's more the entertainment side of things and how I operate. So, thanks a lot for showing up, guys. I always appreciate it when you're here. I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody this time around, but I'm sure that the next time I will, and we'll go from there. So everyone have a good night, and love and good vibes, y'all.